Shalom, ladies, and welcome to Coffee and Connection week 52. So happy to be here with all of you. Chodesh Tov. I know for me, Rosh Chodesh is over, but I still feel in the spirit of it, even though I know that I kind of got dressed today special for Rosh Chodesh and then wear a sweater the entire day. So Shira looks like she understands what I'm talking about. So I just took off my really warm, yummy sweater that I bought myself last week that I'm so happy with. It's soft on both sides. I love it. So, but we'll see. I might need to put it back on. But I know that for many of you, you're still in Rosh Chodesh. So, and for all of us, we're at the beginning of the Chodesh. It should be a good month, a healthy month, a warm month in many ways. Although we should have lots of rain here in Israel, and generally, like I don't even think to talk about like New Year's because it's not our New Year. But the fact that like this, you know, the new year coincided with the fact that it's Rosh Chodesh, just really got me thinking about, how it really is it is a reality that we do feel it at least a little bit of like, oh, it's a new year, huh? Right? Like and it is an opportunity to rethink about our goals and think about what we were planning and what we'd like to accomplish, right? We can always use, it's always good to use opportunities to think about what we want to accomplish and what we want to, move forward in. And I think it's also a good opportunity to check in like, okay, our new year was a few months ago. If you include Elul and our whole, thinking about new stuff, we're already like almost 6 months into the year. Like, okay, so it's a good time to reflect. Where are we in hitting our goals? Where are we in getting to where we said at the beginning of the year that we want to get to? Right. And, something that's always so fascinating and scary at the same time is this idea that they say, like, the gyms are full the first week of January, right? Most people sign up for the gym and go to the gym the first week, but by the second week of February, second week of January, if not by the beginning of February, but it really only takes 1 week for attendance to start to go back to normal, for attendance to go back to what it was. It only takes 1 week of making a resolution for us to completely lose sight of it. And that's scary, right? Because I think it's something that so many of us can relate to, where we make a goal for ourselves, we make a resolution, we feel all fired up and pumped up about like hitting a goal and getting somewhere. And we say, this time we're going to get there, this time it's going to be different. And how long does it take until we forget all about it? How long does it take before we go right back to our old patterns, right? How long, even like I find it's scary how it can be like that day that you're like, yeah, this is really great. I'm so happy that I've started doing this, or I'm so happy that I'm working on this. Like the next day is the day that you fall off of it, right? And it's that big question of how do we stay on track for our goals? How do we actually make sure that we're moving forward, we're growing, we're getting somewhere, we're getting closer to where we want to go? So I want to talk about a few different things that come up, when you really look at the research and you look at the science behind actually creating change in our lives. And one of the great one of the big distinctions that we can make, and this is brought out by Mark Manson. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. He's an amazing writer. His language is very colorful, so I'm not telling you to go read him if you're sensitive to those kinds of things, but he has very, very powerful articles and powerful books. And one of the things that he talks about is why setting goals is not always so helpful, right? Why setting goals is not something that we generally stick to. Why? Because when you set a goal, you're focused on like some big thing in the future that right now I have to put all this effort into. And I put in the effort, I put in the effort, I put in the effort. But because we know, and I think it's something we've talked about here, that willpower is something that we can get like, that gets tired. Willpower is like a muscle, which yes, we can build the muscle, but it also gets tired after a certain amount of time. We're going to run out of willpower. So if I make my goal, let's use the classic, January 1st or January 2nd goal to lose 20 pounds by the summer, right? And I tell myself that in order to lose 20 pounds by the summer, I'm going to, not eat, or I'm going to go to the gym every day, or I'm going to work out, or I'm going to walk every day. So I have this goal of like hitting 20 pounds, and every day I put in the effort to walk. Well, it's a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of willpower to not eat those cookies that are sitting on my counter. And it takes a lot of effort to take that time to go walking when I'm so tired, or to, hit play on my yoga video in the morning instead of like doing something else that I know needs to get done. It takes a lot of willpower. And I may have enough willpower to do it for a day, 2 days, 3 days. It's feeling really good, 4 days, 5 days. But then after a certain amount of time, you're like, I'm not seeing that I'm losing 20 pounds. Like, that's going to take a heck of a lot of walking, a heck of a lot of not eating the cookie to get to 20 pounds. That's just going to take too long. And we lose the will and we give up, right? Because when we're focused on a goal and the goal feels very far off, the goal is not something tangible that we actually see happening in front of us, then we lose our we lose the drive to actually make it happen, and we fall into our old habits. So he suggests two different things to focus on, and they're so powerful. I've seen this in my own life, I've seen it in this work, I've seen it with the women in our groups, I've seen it with all of you, that the big difference is not just focusing on your goals, but it's focusing on skills and habits, right? Instead of focusing on, I want to lose 20 pounds, what about focusing on, I want to focus on the skill of, eating more vegetables or drinking water, or I want to focus on the habits of walking every day, right? The habit of walking every day is very different than the goal of losing 20 pounds, right? Shira and I were actually talking about this today, right? When we were discussing the whole concept of learning new skills and learning new habits and how powerful it is. We're just witnessing the power of learning new skills and learning new habits. And one of those powers is that when you're focused on the goal, everything that takes you away from the goal, every setback is like it just drains the life out of you. It drains all the desire out of you, right? If I tell myself I'm going to lose 20 pounds, I'm just using that as the example, even though this is not a weight loss group, but it's definitely a good metaphor for life. When you have the goal of losing 20 pounds and then you get on the scale and you gained a pound, or you didn't lose anything, right? Or you have an emotional day, or you're exhausted, or you didn't eat properly all day, which is usually why it happens, right? Then and then you eat the cookies, you're like, oh, see, I'm never gonna get there. And you just feel so discouraged and you feel like you're gonna give up. You do give up. Right. And I ate the cookies, I may as well eat the cake and the chocolate, and I may as well, what else? Eat the chips and whatever else is in the cupboard, right? Because like, why not? I already messed up. I'm not getting 20 pounds tomorrow, right? But the truth is, you're not going to get to 20 pounds tomorrow. Nobody loses 20 pounds overnight. And if you did, you're just going to gain it all back. Why? Because we're focusing on this goal as opposed to focusing on actually changing the habits and gaining the skills that are going to allow you not just to lose 20 pounds, but we know it's even more important. It's so scientifically proven at this day in our day and age that losing 20 pounds means nothing. Because what happens when someone actually even loses 20 pounds? They gain back 30. The yo-yo dieting is like, it's crazy, and it's such a reality when we focus on the goal as opposed to focusing on skills and habits. When we focus on skills, we focus on what's going to help me have the life that I want to live, right? What's going to help me have the kind of relationship I want to have? What's going to allow me to have the relationship with food that I want to have, right? That's going to allow me to feel good about myself. And apply that to anything. Apply it to your relationship with your husband or your relationship with your kids, your relationship with yourself, right? There's a big difference between saying, oh my gosh, and this I can totally, I know that this was the issue of the first 10, 15, I don't know, 10 years of my marriage. It was like waking up every morning saying, today I'm going to be the perfect wife. Today we're going to have a perfect relationship. And then what happens when there's a curveball thrown at you? What happens when you get into a fight? What happens when you fall into the old patterns that like you don't even know how to break, right? You're like, I'm gonna have a perfect be the perfect wife, but like I'm still the same me that has all the same skills. Well, then you're gonna tell yourself, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I messed up, um, feel stuck, feel like there's no hope, there's nothing to do. What if instead of focusing on the goal, that big audacious goal with no way to get there, what if instead we focused on a skill or a habit? What if we focused on a skill like I want to learn more about how to actually have good communication. I want to practice the skill of good communication. I want to practice the skill. It's a skill of love, respect, empathy, right? All the basis of absolutely feminine here. What if I wanted to learn and practice those skills? Right? Think of how different that is. Then when life throws you a hiccup, when you have a challenge, which thank God life has those things, right? We have our lives and we're different, right? We're talking about differences. We're different people, and therefore we're gonna have challenges and issues that are gonna come up. But then it's not, oh, we have an issue. Then it's, oh, how do I apply the skills that I've learned to this issue? The issue becomes an opportunity to move forward, an opportunity to grow, or, oh, we had a fight. Now, how do I repair? What did I learn? What's the skill for repair? How do I deal with my feelings right now? And how do I handle the fact that he's upset? Do I get pulled into it? Do I apologize? What do I say when I apologize? Those are skills. How do I apologize? How do I not get pulled in to him being upset? How do I not try to smooth everything over? How do I deal with my feelings in this issue? Those are skills that we can learn and practice no matter what is going on, right? And then there's habits. What about that, like getting into a habit of self care and taking care of myself and making sure that I know that I matter? Or a habit of listening when people talk, right? A habit of saying, I'm going to focus on hearing someone speak for 5 minutes a day. Or the habit of what are some of our, gratitude and seeing the good and celebrating the good in our husbands, not just focusing on the things that are different. Those are habits that we can practice, right? Day in and day out. And it's actually very interesting that it's as Rosh Chodesh, because in one of the articles where Mark Manson talks about this, he says actually to change something in yourself, it actually we actually also say this in Torah sources, you need 30 days. He says you shouldn't have New Year's goals, you should have month goals, right? If you commit yourself to do something every day for 30 days, you'll see a difference. And that's much more sustainable to say, I'm going to work out every day for 30 days is very different than saying, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, right? I'm going to lose 10 pounds by the end of the month. Like, possible? That takes on a lot of factors, right? Like, are you going to lose 10 pounds by the end of the month? That's not always in your control. You may gain muscle. You may be bloated for some reason. You may get sick. You may, who knows what? Like all the different things could happen. But if you commit yourself to healthy habits and learning those habits, learning how to cook healthy for yourself, learning how to get more water in, learning how to set a goal and stick to it, right? Set up habits for yourself. That's very different. That's going to be a very different way to move forward. I'm also going to say that another, if you, when we are really, when we do want to focus on our goals, when we want to focus on something we're going to hit, it's another great tool to, yes, have our big audacious goal, as they call it, but to also have our little goals that we can actionably hit in a sustainable amount of time, right? Let's say someone has 100 pounds to lose. Let's say you have to fix a really broken relationship. Let's say you really are so depleted in your self care. This happens so much with my clients where a woman will say, Hannah, I am so depleted that like there is no amount of coffee or shopping, right? No amount of coffee or shopping or even vacations that is going to pull me out of this self care hole, right? And what I always tell her is like this. First of all, this is why daily self care is so important. Because you may think, like, what the heck does this cup of coffee do, like in the course of my life? Well, if every day you're doing little self cares, I matter. I love myself enough to say, I'm going to take some time for myself. I love myself enough that I'm going to do things I enjoy. Yes, I'm going to get the coffee that I enjoy. Yes, I'm going to make that coffee. Yes, I'm going to sit and enjoy the coffee, right? That is a deposit in your self care account. I'm using a Stephen Covey reference here, right? So, our emotional bank accounts, we have our own. Not only do our relationships have emotional bank accounts, but we have personal bank accounts, right? We have self care accounts. And even if you did get to that place where you feel so depleted that there's no amount, you feel like there's no amount of coffee that I can drink, there's no amount of music I can listen to, there's no amount of hanging out with Leora I could do that's going to pull me out of this depletion, well, it may feel that way, but make those deposits. 5 minutes, by 2 minutes, by 10 minutes, by 120 minutes, by a day, by 30 seconds at a time, right? How long does it take to rub yummy smelling cream on your hands? Like 10 seconds? I don't know. I have mine here. This is my favorite. They discontinued the scent. I am so upset about it. I even had the brilliant idea to check on Amazon and it's like, this is unavailable. So good. Smells so good. And it just sits here on my desk. And anytime, sometimes I'm in the middle of a call, I'm in the middle of, I don't know, listening to something, or I'm on my way out of the house, or I'm in the with the kids, and I just put a pump on my hands. Oh, smells so good. And it feels good. And it's a nice, oh, how long did that take me? 10 seconds. And I did it while I was talking to you all. I could do that while I'm talking to my kids, right? It's so possible. When you do that piece by piece by piece, you can actually pull yourself out of that hole, right? You can. But don't focus on, okay, my goal is to be happy. My goal is to be in a better mood because it might take time. And if every time you put a pump and you're like, I'm not happy, ugh, forget this, chuck it out the window, that's not going to help you. But if instead you tell yourself, my goal is to do self care today, my goal is to develop a habit of self-care, to work on the skill of self-care. They're really both, it's both a skill and a habit. Then every pump, every cup of coffee, every time you talk to a friend, every time you get dressed in a way that you feel good, every time you put on jewelry that you like, every time you go out and take a walk, do yoga, daven, do something that you enjoy, right? Every time you do that, you're succeeding and you're feeding your willpower, right? And you're giving yourself that feeling of success, which is also so important. You want to build yourself up for success. And that is why here at Absolute Feminine, we are obsessed with not just having goals and talking about nice ideas, but making sure that you have skills, making sure that you can create new habits It's something that needs to be created in our lives. We need to make space for it in our lives. We need to add it into our lives because we can't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to be a perfect wife today. Besides the fact that there are no perfect wives, I'm going to have a perfect relationship. There are no perfect relationships, right? And you can't just wake up one day and say, today it's going to happen. Why? Why today and not yesterday? You were just as motivated yesterday. And if anything, today, you're one more day into your bad habits than you were yesterday, right? Every day, we're another day in, unless we're creating new habits for ourselves, unless we're learning new skills. So I'm going to invite you to choose your habit. Choose a habit and choose a skill that you want to work on. And I'm also going to re-invite you. I'm going to remind you that one of the best things that you can do also to make sure that you're not going to forget about that in a week's time or in 2 weeks' time or in 6 weeks' time or 6 months' time is to have it scheduled, to have it set, right? To put it into your life. So don't forget to put into your calendar that we have our absolutely intimate masterclass coming up. I think it's January 17th. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I don't remember the date. Basically 2 weeks today, 2 weeks, today, an hour earlier than here, 2 o'clock Eastern. We're getting started. Put it in your calendar now. And I would even invite you, as you put it in your calendar, to put with it the skill or the habit that you most want to dedicate yourself to working on. And even go ahead and send that to me so I can see if I can make sure that it's incorporated in to the masterclass if I can, right? So that you can really make sure that you're cementing in, you're learning, you're building those skills, you're building the habits and not just relying on, well, I hope I get to that goal, right? I hope it happens, or yeah, it's going to happen, but with no real end in sight, or relying on your willpower, which we know doesn't last us very long, right? So let me just quickly look at these questions and see if I can answer them now, or if there's something that we need to take another session for. How can you practice good communication with someone who doesn't know how and doesn't want or can't learn? Oh my gosh, please come to the absolutely intimate masterclass because that's what we're going to be talking about. These are the same skills I teach on organizing, but many people just can't do it. They have stumbling blocks or feel weak thinking of it. Thank you, Esther. That is so true. And that is why we have to also look when we're learning new skills and learning new habits. What can come up for us is all our blockages, all those voices. And that's one of the things we do in the Absolutely Feminine program is we listen to those voices and we work through those voices, right? Because it, they can really get in the way of making sure that we're sticking to our new habits. So as we're learning anything new, it's also important to tune into, like, what are my big buts that are coming up for me? What are the things that are holding me back? What are my fears and limiting beliefs and doubts and stories? That's a really important part of all of this work as well. Definitely. Thank you for bringing that up. And I thank you for the encouragement. I think it's deeper than that. You need to soul search. Why you do what you do? It's skills, but also better answer if you ask what is standing in the way if you be. Isn't that so funny? You just said exactly what I said. So there you go. I answered your question 100%. We have to learn new habits and new skills. Of course, just learning the habits and skills, which I think is something um, so many of us experience over our lives, that we learn to habit and we're trying all the time to do it and we can't figure out why it's not working. Sometimes there is the underlying stuff, so we'll talk about that. It is definitely the deeper part of it, but it's always important to be doing both, right? That's, we see that in the Torah, right, where it always tells us love Hashem and focus on the deeper meaning and do these mitzvahs. And doing the mitzvahs help us love Hashem, and the more we love Hashem, the more we're going to want to do the mitzvahs. So we want to always be focusing on the actions and the internal stuff at the same time, inside out and outside in. Is there a cost to the masterclass? No, there is no cost to the masterclass. The masterclass is absolutely free, and I will be giving as much as I can in that free masterclass, which you are all invited to join. I'll be sending out more emails about it, but you definitely, in the email I sent with the survey 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago there was a link to save the date. I'll make sure to send that out again, but also you could put it into your calendar 2 weeks from today at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm excited to see you all then. And to continue this conversation. So let's really commit ourselves this year, not just, I'm inviting you to commit with me, not just to having goals, not just to having, those big ideas of what we want to accomplish, which is great and can give us inspiration, but to also make sure that we are fine tuning it, that we are asking ourselves, what skill do I need to learn in order to accomplish that? And what habits do I need to create in order to stick to it and really allow it to work for me in my life and allow me to grow from it and really experience a real shift in my life, in my relationships, and in who I am being in this world and with all the people that I love. So I want to thank you all for coming here, and Chodesh Tov, and it should be only a amazing week and year and month and all good stuff. I can't wait to see you next week, and until then, may we all be blessed to live to may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.